Everyone thought she was in a coma, but she could hear everything. Her friends planning her death, her team stealing her empire, until one poor janitor said something that changed her life forever. And what happened next will shock you. Let's begin. A powerful businesswoman lies in a hospital bed after a deadly crash. Doctors say she's unconscious, but she hears every word. Her trusted team plans to take her company. Her friends talk about her money like she's already gone. She's trapped, unable to move, unable to speak. Then, one night, a janitor walks in. Not for money, not for power, just to talk to her like a human. Day by day, his words change her. A little girl holds her hand and says, "You're not alone." And in that moment, everything breaks inside her. Will she wake up in time or lose everything forever? Let's continue. After the devastating accident, Serena Hayes lay completely still in a hospital bed, her body lifeless, while machines kept her breathing and monitors echoed a steady rhythm. And although doctors declared her to be in a deep coma with no awareness, they were completely mistaken because Serena could hear everything happening around her, from executives quietly discussing her company shares to so-called friends calculating her inheritance, even nurses speaking about her as if she had already passed away. Until one evening, a humble janitor walked in and spoke a single genuine sentence that shook something deep inside her frozen heart, because unlike everyone else, he showed no greed or pity, only honesty. The night of the crash, she had been leaving a glamorous charity gala as the honored guest, surrounded by flashing cameras and applause. Wearing the same perfected smile she had mastered over decades as the powerful CEO of Hayes Development Corporation, a massive real estate empire, a woman admired by magazines, politicians, and young professionals alike. But in a single moment, everything changed when a truck lost control and destroyed her car, leaving her trapped in darkness, not the peaceful darkness of sleep, but a terrifying awareness where her mind was fully awake, while her body refused to respond, unable to move, speak, or even open her eyes, silently screaming for help, while doctors labeled her condition as a coma, never realizing she was actually conscious and imprisoned inside her own body, a condition known as locked-in syndrome. Yet no one thought to test for it, and as days passed, she endured the painful truth that everyone around her saw her not as a human, but as a case, an asset, or an opportunity, especially when her trusted CFO and legal advisors coldly discussed succession plans and billions of dollars over her silent body, laughing as they planned her future without her, while fake friends visited briefly, pretending to care but secretly whispering about her luxury properties, and even taking pictures for social media, leaving her to realize that her entire life had been built on empty relationships because years ago she had closed her heart after betrayal and focused only on wealth and power, building walls so high that now, when she needed someone the most, no one truly stood beside her until Marcus Johnson, a simple maintenance worker who had witnessed her accident, returned to fulfill a promise he had made that night, speaking to her daily, as if she could hear him, sharing stories about his life, his struggles, and his late wife Angela, believing deeply that even unconscious people could feel presence and love. And through his words, Serena experienced something she had never known, genuine human connection, without expectation. Learning about his hardships as a single father raising his daughter Lily, facing judgment, financial struggles, and loss, yet still finding meaning in small acts of kindness. And when he brought Lily to visit, the little girl held Serena's hand and softly told her she wasn't alone. Words that broke through every emotional wall Serena had built over decades, making her realize that despite her billions, she had never truly been loved or seen. While Marcus, who had so little, possessed something far greater, real connection and purpose. As the days passed, Serena secretly chose to remain silent just to hear Marcus speak again. But everything changed when she overheard plans to transfer her away and take control of her life permanently, realizing she was about to lose the only people who truly cared, and when Marcus came to say goodbye, thanking her for giving his words meaning. Serena made the most important decision of her life, to fight. Not for power or wealth, but for connection, focusing all her strength until finally her finger moved. Then her eyes opened, shocking everyone as she whispered that she had heard everything, especially his words about Angela and Lily, thanking him for treating her like a human being. And from that moment, her life transformed completely as she slowly recovered, removed the greedy people from her life, created a foundation to help others, and chose a new path defined not by money, but by humanity. While Marcus remained humble, refusing wealth, but accepting support for his daughter's future, And in a quiet hospital garden weeks later, Serena sat beside Lily and Marcus, smiling genuinely for the first time in years, finally understanding that true strength is not independence or wealth, but connection, kindness, and being seen, realizing that sometimes healing does not come from being saved, but simply from someone staying beside you in the darkness and reminding you that you are not alone. After everything changed, Serena Hayes no longer saw the world the way she once had, because waking up from that living prison was not just a physical recovery, but the beginning of a completely new life, one where power, wealth, and reputation no longer defined her purpose. As she spent her days slowly rebuilding her strength while reflecting on every word Marcus had spoken, realizing that the man society ignored had unknowingly saved her soul, and instead of returning to her old life of boardrooms and billion-dollar decisions, she began removing the people who had treated her like an asset, cutting ties with executives who had already planned her replacement, and distancing herself from friends who had revealed their true intentions, while at the same time she started creating something meaningful, a foundation inspired by Angela's story to support families struggling with loss and hardship, not for recognition, but because she finally understood the value of compassion. And during her recovery, Marcus continued visiting, not as an employee or a stranger, but as someone who had become an unexpected part of her life, bringing Lily along whenever he could, and each visit filled the once silent space around Serena with warmth and laughter, something she had never truly experienced before, as Lily would talk endlessly about school, her dreams, and the little things that made her happy, teaching Serena that joy was not found in achievements but in moments. And over time, Serena found herself opening up, sharing pieces of her past she had never told anyone, admitting how fear had shaped her decisions, and how loneliness had followed her even at the peak of her success, while Marcus listened without judgment, offering simple wisdom shaped by hardship rather than privilege. And through these conversations, Serena discovered a kind of peace she had spent her entire life chasing, a peace that came not from control but from connection. And as her health improved, she made a decision that surprised everyone around her, choosing to step back from her empire and delegate control to people she could trust, focusing instead on rebuilding her life in a way that allowed her to truly live. And one afternoon, as she sat in the hospital garden watching Lily run freely under the open sky, Serena realized that for the first time in decades, she was not thinking about money, power, or expectations, but about something far more important, the feeling of belonging. And in that moment, she understood that the accident, which had once seemed like the end of everything, had actually given her the one thing she had been missing all along, a second chance not just to survive, but to become human again, to feel, to care, and to love without fear. And as she looked at Marcus and Lily beside her, she knew that her life was no longer defined by what she owned, but by who she chose to be and who she chose to stand beside. Because in the end, the greatest transformation was not her recovery, but the realization that true wealth is not measured in billions, but in the people who stay when you have nothing left to offer except your heart,